like Clark, I can't stop. Fuck around, make my 40 pop. No popcorn, I pop pistols, reaming my body.
Boruto 2020 Awards. Alright, now I did this last year and I really liked it, so I'm going to do it again this year. If you guys aren't necessarily too familiar, I'm going to be giving awards. So for example, the big award that I'm going to be giving at the end of the video is going to have to be MVP, which is most valuable player in usual terms, but of course in this particular situation is going to be most valuable character. So it's going to be the character who I believe was the most valuable to the Boruto series of this year. Now of course I'm going to be talking about some other awards, for example most improved character and also rookies of the year. And as I'm going along giving away my awards, I want you guys to comment down which characters you guys think will probably be worthy of these awards as well. Now the first award that I do want to give out is going to be First Team All Ninja. This is basically modeled off the sports teams. It basically tells you guys which players were the best players of that year, and this right here is going to be the strongest ninjas of 2020. And when they do talk about it, it's usually in the terms of actual teams. So of course a regular ninja team right here is going to be the master of the other three people in the team. So of course number one is going to have to be Ichigo Tsuki. He'd have to be like the Jonin in the team or something like that. Ichigo Tsuki this year has pretty much shown us that he was the strongest character that we've seen of all time. And surprisingly, when me and a lot of other people actually do say that statement, no one really objects to that statement, especially people who are really staunch fans of other characters like Madara or Itachi or something like that. When we talk about other characters possibly being the strongest of the series, for example Kage or Momoshiki or even Naruto or Sasuke, some people always bring up, hey, Jubi Madara with 2 Renegons is probably stronger than that character, or hey, healthy Itachi is probably stronger than that character. But when we talk about Ichigo Tsuki, he is highly regarded. Like, people know this universally. He's the strongest character that we've ever seen before. Now the rest of the team has to go Naruto, Sasuke, and Borushiki. I'm pretty sure no one will probably disagree with that. Now the next category that I do want to talk about has to be Rookies of the Year. Now this right here in my opinion was super interesting. I can't necessarily put Ichigo Tsuki in this conversation, man, because we did see him and he did make a very big impact in 2020 in the body of Jigen, so we can't necessarily say Ichigo Tsuki. I really wanted to put Mujino in this conversation, man, because he did make a strong impact towards the end of 2020, but of course he wasn't necessarily that insane. So the winner has to be Amado in my opinion. Amado, of course, it wasn't necessarily his first year being in the whole series of Boruto, but of course Amado really took center stage in this year, and it's really ironic giving this award to someone who's not necessarily a ninja. A lot of things in this year was actually facilitated by Amado. For example, Kashin Koji fighting against Ichigo Tsuki. Of course this right here was all Amado's plan. Even in the most recent chapter, Ichigo Tsuki, which is pretty much the big blood of everything, this was all facilitated by Amado. Amado pretty much put his neck on the line, invading the Hidden Leaf Village, taking Shikadai captive for this reason alone. And not only just that, just flat out information and plot points being further. When we talk about the backstory of Kage and Ichigo Tsuki giving the Karma Seal to Jigen, Amado basically told us that. Amado told us the relationship between Ichigo Tsuki and Kage. Amado told us how the Karma Seal actually worked. Amado broke down why Otsutsuki members even have the Karma Seal. Amado broke down why Otsutsuki members need the 10 tails and why that actually is important in terms of actually creating a god tree. A whole bunch of things Amado broke down. So I think hands down, in my opinion, he's definitely the Rookie of the Year. Now most improved character, in my opinion, this right here was very tricky in my opinion because it was between two characters. Now the first character is going to have to be Sada, just because of the sheer fact that last year I don't necessarily think that she had a very big growth, but this year, my goodness, Sada had a year. What was really important for Sada in my opinion is of course the progression of her Sharingan. Before this year we didn't know anything about Sada's Sharingan. In terms of the Boruto manga, I don't even think we've seen Sada's Tomo since, like, I don't know, when she first seen Sasuke or something like that. That's just how absent Sada's Sharingan has been in the Boruto manga. In the Boruto anime, it was all one Tomo, and of course in the Boruto manga recently we found out that Sada actually has 3 Tomos, and of course in the Boruto anime she also has 2 Tomos as well. Now it's not just about the progression of Sada's Tomos. When she did fight against Boro, she's basically the main catalyst. She basically took hold and became captain of that team. Now if you guys do recall, back when that team was first formed, the biggest thing that we were talking about was who was going to step forth and be the actual leader of that team. We understood that Kawaki doesn't necessarily answer anybody. We understand that Boruto wanted to take the step forth, man, because he did want to start becoming that alpha dog. And of course in the Boruto manga, Boruto is a lot stronger than Sada, and Sada arguably the weakest member of Team 7 to basically step forward and be the captain of that team, that super Team 7 team. Subtract Konohama and put in Kawaki. It was absolutely insane. So of course I'm going to probably have to give Sada the most improved player. Now my runner-up, and this right here is probably going to be the only person that I give a runner-up just because of the sheer fact that it was so close, is going to have to be Kashin Koji. Before this year, Kashin Koji was he was a mystery. We didn't know exactly who Kashin Koji was. Because his identity was actually revealed, now everybody has a very strong affection and a very strong affinity for the character of Kashin Koji. We understand that he's not necessarily 100% Jiraiya, but because he is a clone of Jiraiya, that still affects a lot of the hardcore Jiraiya fans out there. So of course, he, in my opinion, had the biggest jump up in terms of character, but in terms of like on-field and on-court production, I'm going to have to give it to Sada. Now, what Kashin Koji did this year should not be understated at all. It's not just about Kashin Koji's true identity, but he also drew out the actual Ishiki Otsutsuki. He forced Ishiki Otsutsuki to use the vessel of Jigen to actually reborn into, and that pretty much saved Kawaki right then and there. That right there was extremely important. Alright guys, finally the next one is going to be MVP. Now, one of the obvious answers is of course going to be Naruto. Naruto has done so much, and to be honest, that right there is quite controversial, mainly because people kind of dislike Naruto having this big of a role in a series that's not really his. Of course, the show is called Boruto, but I personally don't have a problem with it, and I'm pretty sure as of right now, a lot of people, or majority of the people, don't really have a problem with it, mainly because when we talk about the big bloods, Naruto and Sasuke have to be involved. But of course, when we talk about the impact that Naruto had, I mean, everything would be completely finished if Naruto didn't necessarily step in and utilize his barrier mode. Not only that, Naruto basically showed the willingness to put his life on the line to save the day. At this particular point, we don't really know if Naruto is going to die or not, but just the fact that he was actually willing to die and put his life on the line is something significant in itself. Ishiki Otsutsuki first started the battle. Ishiki Otsutsuki himself thought he had a couple of days left. When Kawaki finally showed up, Ishiki Otsutsuki only had 5 minutes left. All that time frame was just shaved down by Naruto's barrier mode, which is absolutely elite. But here's the thing. I'm not going to say Naruto is the MVP. I think that Naruto is a very strong candidate. But in terms of the whole year, I'm going to have to say the MVP is Ishiki Otsutsuki. Everything has been surrounded around Ishiki Otsutsuki. The whole series of Boruto has just been focal pointed to Ishiki Otsutsuki. Now, I do want to point out, every single main villain is not going to be MVP because the whole series is just focused around that villain. It's just what Ishiki Otsutsuki brought to the table. We have to understand, all right, first things first, the year started off with Kawaki and Team 7 fighting off against Boro. Remind you, Ishiki Otsutsuki was the catalyst to that. Ishiki Otsutsuki was the catalyst to us seeing that Sada had 3 Tomos. If you guys do recall, Ishiki Otsutsuki just previously destroyed Naruto and Sasuke, sealed Naruto, and then had Boro guard the seal. Another big catalyst that Ishiki Otsutsuki had, he fought against Kashin Koji and basically destroyed his mask. The whole big thing throughout majority of this year was of course the identity of Kashin Koji. Was Kashin Koji going to be Jiraiya? Is Jiraiya Kashin Koji? Is Jiraiya now back into the Boruto series? We wouldn't have necessarily known until he actually got the mask completely destroyed. Not only that, Ishiki Otsutsuki himself basically said it at first. Ishiki Otsutsuki was pointing out the fate, and Ishiki Otsutsuki was also talking about the legendary 3 signings. Ishiki Otsutsuki is one that basically brought light to exactly who Kashin Koji actually was. Ishiki Otsutsuki overall is a very strong opponent. He's very formidable, but also in terms of the Boruto series, the impact that he had just up until then was absolutely insane. Now, of course, later on, he had the insane scene of him actually invading the Hidden Leaf Village. This right here had to be one of the most hyped chapters of this year period, and not only that, he was the catalyst to Naruto actually entering the Baryon mode. When we talk about the things that Ishiki Otsutsuki did actually impact in terms of the Boruto series thus far in this year, it's just been absolutely insane, so I'm going to have to give him the MVP. Now, me personally, my favorite moment from Ishiki Otsutsuki, I'm not gonna lie guys, it's really close. It's gonna be really close. The recent scene that we did see from Ishiki Otsutsuki was probably the best, when Ishiki Otsutsuki did actually fall and falter against Kawaki and Naruto and Sasuke in that big fight when he did actually invade the Konoha, and of course Boruto brought them to a different dimension. That right there has to be the best scene that Ishiki Otsutsuki was in. But selfishly for me, I'm gonna have to say my favorite one has to be when Ishiki Otsutsuki fought against Kashin Koji. Not just the fight, but of course the big impact of Ishiki Otsutsuki unmasking who Kashin Koji really is and breaking it down. But as I said, give me your awards for this year. Just to recap and go over the awards that I did give out. First team All Ninja has to be Ishiki Otsutsuki, Naruto, Sasuke, and Borushiki. Rookie of the year, I'm gonna have to go with Amato. Most improved player or most improved character in this particular situation is going to have to be Sada, with a very close Kashin Koji, and of course MVP is going to have to be Ishiki Otsutsuki. But it's me, your boy Bar B, and we out.
It's a knife.